My name's Diane Fuller. My name before I married was Diane Gentry. I came to Glendale in 1971. My father was an alcoholic, and my mother had mental problems, and we were abandoned. I went to my grandmother's. We went to my grandmother's. She loved us, but she couldn't take care of us. So my uncle, who lived in Louisville, knew about Glendale Children's Home, and he found out about it. Long story short, my sisters and I came to Glendale in 1971. We were scared. But we had been neglected for a long time, and I'm the oldest, and I took care of my younger siblings as best as I could. And before we went to the home, they were trying to split us up. You go with this person, you go with that person. None of them really wanted us, and we could feel it. So, as the oldest sister, I said, we are going together. And we went together. And we were scared. But going to Glendale was the best thing that happened to myself and my family. We had structure. We went to the doctor when we were sick. First time I ever went to the dentist was in Glendale, at the Glendale Children's Home. They took care of us. We had food to eat at every meal, which wasn't so when we lived with my mother. So Glendale was a blessing to myself and my family. Now, when we were there, we weren't so sure. But now, looking back, I know that it was a blessing. I had house mothers who loved me, and I knew they did. And they weren't my family, but I knew that they loved me and wanted what was best for me. This could go on and on. I have so many stories, but my takeaway from this is my family, my sisters and myself were saved by Glendale. And I had a house mother. I didn't know what I was going to do when I graduated from high school, because when you graduated, that was it. Now, they tried to help you find places to go. In my case, I had a house mother who was once a house mother for sorority at Western. So her tie to Western helped me. So she took me to Western, Kentucky University in Bowling Green. I toured Western. We came back. I told her I think I'd like to try it. And so they got the paperwork going, and I got financial aid through the children's home. Their counselors found financial aid for me so that I could go to college. Found out that I could get a part-time job at Western while I went to school. And so that's what happened. And when I graduated of course, I met my husband at Western. And when I graduated, we got married, and I became a teacher. And I owe all of that to Glendale. My sisters followed suit, sort of. They had a rougher time than I did, because I think my family situation, when they came along, my family was falling apart. I still remembered a time when my family wasn't falling apart. So, but as adults, they have families, they had good jobs, and they made it. And if we hadn't come to the children's home and received the care that we had, I don't think we would have made it. It would have been a different story for all of us. And that's my take on it. It was a good place at a good time, and I hate that it's gone, because I know children today that could benefit from a children's home like that. So,
my name's Tim Isaacs. I was a resident at the Glendale Children's Home from 1981 to 1986. A ton of good memories. And that's what you focus on, I guess, as you reflect back, because they're obviously a mixture of both. Made a lot of connections there over the years, but I think the thing I recall the most are the life lessons that I learned. Haywood Reiner was the activities director then. He taught me how to drive a car. He taught me to be a lifeguard. I think the most important thing he taught me was that my word mattered. As a high school principal right now, the one thing you can do to upset me the quickest is to question my integrity, because the reason I was sent to live at the children's home was because I was basically a delinquent. I was in a lot of trouble with the law, wouldn't go to school. So I know what it's like to where your name doesn't matter, and anything you say, nobody believes. So now, and Haywood Reiner taught me that when you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. I was just telling him a story. As a lifeguard, one of my jobs was to pull the weeds around the pool. Not glamorous, not fun, because you were pulling them by hand around the fence. Had to go all the way around the fence and pull the weeds. And he came to me, he called my cottage one Saturday afternoon. He said, "The weeds aren't pulled." I said, I've had a lot to do. I'm going to get to them. He said, "No, you told me you're going to have them done by Wednesday morning. Teddy's going to do it now." I said, "But it's my job." He said, "No, it was your job until Saturday morning. Now it's Teddy's job." And I immediately got permission from my house parent to go up there, and I pulled the weeds. And he called me back and said, "Well, I'm not going to pay you." And I said, "I know, but I said I was going to pull the weeds." And it was that life lesson that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. Stayed there. God, the first year was interesting. I just basically behaved for a year. And I was in 8th grade. I was redoing 8th grade at Sonora Elementary. Great year. We had such great teachers over at Sonora. We talk a lot about the staff, but the teachers we had at Sonora were amazing too. Lewis White, who was a former resident of the Glendale Children's Home, was my PE teacher, and just awesome. But at the end of my 8th grade year, I had behaved well enough that they thought I could go home. Well, the environment at home hadn't changed, and we really hadn't worked on anything at home. I just behaved myself because I was never stupid. So they sent me home, and took about 9 months before I was right back to where I had started. It was March of 1983, and the police had caught me stealing from a locker room in the YMCA in St. Matthews area of Louisville. And they called my mom, because that's what you did in the 1980s. Even the police most of the time with a juvenile, they just called your mom. She came down there and she looked at him and said, "No, he's not coming with me." And she told them to arrest me, and they did. And I called Buckley Carlin, who was the director then, who was, again, another former home kid. He had grown up there in the 50s. I called him and said, "Can I come home?" And he opened the door, and I was back there within a week. And that was the point where I realized that the way I was living my life wasn't working, and something had to change. And that's when we started to make changes in what caused that. The underlying anger that had been driving all my decision making, and to start addressing the anger and getting past the hurt and dealing with the problems, so that when I did leave there, I was going to be able to make better decisions. And it was a long road. By the end of my senior year, things were going well. And so I got to work off campus the summer of my junior year. Between my junior and senior year, that last summer, I got to work off campus. Now, I was 18 because I'd failed a year of school. But normally, we didn't get to work in the community. It got to be a big deal. And I got to be a lifeguard at City Pool. So I thought I was a big deal. My head was like this big. I was so proud of myself by the end of the summer. And I decided I wanted to graduate from East Hardin, but I didn't want to live in the home's rules anymore, because I was too good for that. I was 18 years old. I was a man. And so I set it up with an ex-girlfriend's family that I was going to move into E-Town, and I was going to live with them so that I could go to East and I didn't want the rules anymore. And so I came back, and my cottage social worker was a man named David Babb. And I'm telling you, I could lie better than most people in the world. I could convince most people your name was different. I was that good a liar. I could never lie to David Babb. And it wasn't because I didn't try. It was because I just couldn't get it past him. He could always tell when I was lying. So at that point, I'd quit trying. And I went into his office, and I told him, I'm going to move off campus. I'm going to go leave. And I'll never forget, you have those moments where you remember them, like every minute detail, and you know exactly what happened. I remember this conversation because, like I said, my head was about this big. And I looked at him and said, I'm leaving, I'm moving out. And he looked at me and said, let me help you pack. And that wasn't what he was supposed to say. He's supposed to tell me how much he needed me and how important I was. And he said, I love you like a son, but you will not shit on my boys. Pardon the language, but that's quote. He said, you will get it together or you will get out. And I swallowed my pride, and I stayed, and he shut me down. I'm telling you, I'm 18 years old, and for the first month of my senior year, I'm not allowed out of the building without a house parent. And just totally took my legs out from under me, but he taught me this humility that I lack so much. And that last year was amazing because of that, because he taught me to swallow my pride and not make my decisions based on what felt good, or to trust in God and to make decisions that were going to be in my best interest, not necessarily what was going to be the most enjoyable. And it ended up being a great year. Graduated there in 1986, went on to, started out at Campbellsville College first, transferred and graduated from Georgetown College in Georgetown, Kentucky. Met my wife there. We've been married 32 years. Sometimes I still tell people I grew up in Louisville, but I didn't. I left Glendale. I left Louisville when I was 14 years old. I am a home kid, and I loved my connection. I was very involved in school, and I love those things. But the connections, the friends that still talk to, and we don't necessarily see each other because there are home kids spread out all over the country. But there's still that connection, and all you got to do is reach out, and they're just so happy to see you. And then people like Mr. Reiner that worked there, and Sue Carlin is still here, the director's wife when I lived there, and Sue's still in the community. And I get a anniversary card from Sue Carlin every year. So we are a community, even though we don't necessarily see each other. Even people I didn't live with, if we have that common connection that we were home kids, that immediately bonds us. Because of the life experiences. And they weren't all amazing. These weren't always shining moments. We were very broken people, no matter what brought us there, because, a lot of the ones that grew up with me, they weren't there by the decisions they made like I had, and that was one of the life lessons I learned, that it wasn't all my fault. My parents were broken too, and so I didn't have to carry their burdens. I just needed to recognize the behaviors in me. And I'll tell you, because I think this is important, it's one of the things that I've learned about me. I still have those same self-destructive tendencies in me that cause some of those behaviors. What Glendale taught me to do was recognize when they're coming and to try to cut them off. Or when I do make some of those decisions, to recognize and to correct course again and to try to get back to where I was. It's led my career. I've been a high school principal for the last 15 years, a high school educator for 28. Worked at the children's home from 1991 to 96, and that was amazing to get to work with the same type of kid I grew up with. My mom kept custody of me. She couldn't afford to pay anything. They never asked that question. I wasn't Baptist. They didn't ask that question. They asked, what do you need and how can we provide it? And that's driven my entire life. As an educator, my call to kids is, what do you need and how can I provide it?
Lewis White, went to Glendale Children's Home in 1952, in the spring of 52. Was there 14 years, left when I graduated from high school. Graduated from East Hardin High School in 1965. Grew up in Glendale as a young boy. At the time, just enjoyed, playing with all the other boys my age and growing up through the years, growing up with them. Became very athletic and could do any sport that I wanted to. Basketball, track, cross country, just and developed those skills at Glendale home, running up and down the river, running around the 500-acre farm. Grew up working on the farm and grew up working on around the 500-acre plot, mowing yard, doing KP work, milking cows, cleaning house, doing laundry, doing other boys' laundry, doing the whole cottage laundry. So as a young boy, learned many skills that taught me life and taught me to get along with people and other boys and girls my age. Of course, back then the girls were separated from the boys and didn't have a lot of contact with the opposite sex throughout the years. So just boys stayed with boys and girls stayed with girls. So learning all those skills growing up, working, so forth, has made me who I am. And I still do those things: laundry, working around the house, cleaning the house, shining floors, just like I grew up. So that impacted Glendale. All the chores I had impacted my life and taught me how to, take care of myself and get along with people. So that's the impact Glendale home had on me. Getting up at 3 o'clock, go milking cows, going back to the dormitory, shower, clean up, eat breakfast, go to school. I was on the last milking crew that had it at the dairy there. I was there when all the dairy was sold, and was there the day that the auction took place, and just helped out around the dairy, anything that needed to be done during that auction time. Main thing it took with me was getting along with people and doing multiple skills around the house, outside. Like I said, athletic wise, we always had boys that played, basketball, baseball, run cross country and track. So, those were things that developed me and my skills. Had a motorcycle wreck when I was in the spring when I was 20 years old. I had joined the Air Force, and my amputation took place before I could be on active duty. So, and I taught 31 years here in the Hardin County schools, and Ms. White, who passed away, taught English and history, social studies at Sonora Elementary, and I remarried a Hallett girl who lived right down the road from Glendale home, and lived on her farm was right next to our farm at Glendale home. So.
Deborah Warren. I was a house parent at Glendale from 1984 to 1988.
Robert Warren, and I was a house parent from 1984 to 1988, but I also was cottage supervisor the latter half of that time at Davis Cottage, and the head of the independent living program at the very end of that time for the final year.
It was amazing to get to work with the girls and how not only they worked with each other to change each other's lives, but to change our lives and the traumas that we had had in our past.
We both grew up in kind of rough situations ourselves. I mean, I grew up in a children's home for part of my life, as well as was adopted twice, actually, because one of the adoptions fell through. So going back and being able to work in a children's home and work with kids ended up being a very good experience for, I think, both of us, as well as for the kids. And maintaining a relationship with them over the years has also been extremely helpful, as we've talked to lots of them and kept in touch with them over the years. Has been extremely fun. It's not the first time we've actually talked to them other than today.
Well, and it was, it's been a blessing to see that as they grew through the process of working with each other and living with each other, learning how to problem solve, learning how to work through relationships, learning how to work through their issues together and support one another in that. Now we see them as adults and they're successful in their lives. And that we feel like was contributed to by how we work together at the children's home.
One of the really neat things I think that our society doesn't understand about children's homes is, an opportunity to make a second family. And that's one of the things we saw at Glendale, is that these kids were removed from families that had been very unsuccessful, and they came here to Glendale and formed a second family that gave them an opportunity to be successful in a family life. And living together in a cottage like that, these girls got to become sisters that were able to be successful and were able to live a family life where they could learn what it was like to care for someone and to care for each other. And it was the same when I went to the little boys' cottage, where they got to see what it was like to be a brother, a big brother and a little brother, and to see what it was like to be able to live in a family that could succeed instead of fail. And
the way they did succeed was by supporting each other and helping each other work through that problem instead of lashing out in that problem. Probably the biggest takeaway, I think, is your past doesn't have to define who you are.
Yeah. One of the things I love particularly about Glendale Children's Home was the fact that it was on this farm where they were given lots of opportunities to do things. One of the things that Buckley Carlin used to say all the time, the leader of Glendale Children's Home, is that nothing builds success like success. And the kids were constantly given opportunities to succeed. And they gave them things to do and taught them that you can be well instead of be sick. And lots of, I think, social work type environments teach kids that they're sick. You got a problem, there's something wrong with you. And Glendale never taught the kids that.
Mm-mm.
They taught them that you're fine, you're well, and you can get better. And we were always trying to teach them that you're fine, you're well, and you can get better. And they did, because they believed it. We showed them that they were, and we let them get better all the time.
If they made a mistake, there was always another day of grace ahead of them.
Everybody makes mistakes, and that was okay. It was okay to make a mistake and get better, because people make mistakes in families. That's life, and that's what you do. And you make them together, and you get better. And we make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of us do. And that's sort of the beauty of family, is family holds each other accountable, and family holds each other together, and family improves. And that's what Glendale was, family.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Nan Harwood, and I was a resident at Glendale from the time I was 16 until I graduated high school, and they also helped me go to college afterwards as well. I'm a retired educator from public high schools for 30 years where I taught French and English. And I'm now an English professor at Sky CTC, which is a community college in Bowling Green, Kentucky. One of the big things that really meant a lot to me at Glendale was the culture of caring, the culture of wanting everyone to be successful, regardless of where you were in your life experiences, and being able to be independent, to make decisions on our own, and to be comfortable in what we had decided. I've used those values throughout my entire teaching career as well, and have even shared my experiences with my students to let them know that whatever they decide to do, it's not impossible, regardless of what other people say about them, even if that's a family member that says that about you, because that was my experience. My father telling me that I was never going to be smart enough, and that I was going to end up like many girls in my family, alone and pregnant with, 2 or 3 kids. One of the other things that was really neat about the experience at Glendale was that instant connection you had with people. So when I would see students in my classroom and they came in as foster kids, and I would tell them, I was one too. And immediately there's that connection between the two of you because you understand the experiences and the moments that happened to you because of being in foster care or being in a program like Glendale. So I was able to really connect and understand with my students' experiences because I taught at a high school for 30 years where we were low income, we were Title I school, we had over 30 different languages spoken because Bowling Green has a huge immigrant center. And I was able to instantly connect with those kids and understand them because I knew what they had been through. One of the big things that I took away from my experiences at Glendale was never to use it as a crutch, never to use it as emotional baggage to say that I couldn't do something, to go out there and live my life because I had the tools to help me live the life I wanted to be successful. And many times when I've told people I was in foster care, they didn't believe me. They were like, no, not you, no way. I said, well, that's because I don't use it as my crutch. I use it as that was an opportunity for me to become a better person, a better individual, a contributor to society, a person who could go out and make a difference. And that's one of the main reasons I became a teacher, because I saw those different things happening at Glendale for me and for others. So I wanted to be able to take those experiences and then use them to help other people, whatever their trauma was, even if it was something as trivial as I picked the wrong color shirt this morning to something where there was obviously something going on that was very serious. But I really think that's one of the main things I took with me, that I was equipped, I was ready to do, and I was able to help people because it wasn't my crutch.
I'm Haywood Reiner, and this is my wife, Dixie. We came to Glendale in 1978. We came as a team. My role was activities and recreation, and Dixie was taking care of our family and working with kids in activities and art and those kinds of things. And when we came here, we had our daughter Corey, 1 month old, and when we left in 1986, we had Corey and Nathan, who was born in Elizabethtown. Looking back, the experience at Glendale was a great time in our life. As I said, my job was recreation and activities, and we planned things for the kids, whether it be intramural sports, volleyball, cage ball, basketball, special events on holidays, whether it be Memorial Day or 4th of July, and parties at Thanksgiving, Halloween, and Christmas. Had a lot of fun with that. We were active here at Gilead Baptist Church. And in the summer, we went to camp. We went to Otter Creek Park every year, and did a lot of different things with the kids, rappelling, canoeing, going in the cave, things that we didn't do on campus. I think to look back and even as I talk to some of these young adults today who were here when they were kids and I was a lot younger for sure, you never know with working with young people, something you say registers. You forget all about what happened 40 years ago, and a young man will say, what you said that day impacted my life. And I didn't realize it at the time, but you helped me develop integrity, being a man of your word, making good decisions. And Tim Isaacs is just retiring as principal in the high school here, Central Hardin. So, I look back and you wonder, did I make a difference at all? And if I did, how did I make a difference? And comments like that by Tim Isaacs, Brent Holtzclaw, and others just mean so much. For us, our family lived on campus. We lived in the old farmhouse down the road. They were here with me every day when they were little toddlers. They came to the swimming pool every day in the summer. We ate meals together at the cafeteria. I mean, Glendale wasn't just a job. It wasn't a job for us. It was a ministry.
It was a good life.
It was a good life. It was a way of life. And, we came to church here. We shared Christ and Christian values through the church with our kids. But also we tried to live our faith and portray what it meant to be a strong family and to cherish one another and love one another and work together. And as I look back, as I said, I talked to Tim a little while ago, and his wife now is an educator. Both of his daughters are in a library and in education. And some of these kids have done just extremely well. So it's gratifying. And the big thing was trying to set a foundation for kids who were smart, attractive, talented. They could do anything and everything. They just needed a little structure in their life. And I think Glendale provided that structure, at least from our point of view, from the outside looking in. And I think it also helped impact us to say how strong family is. So throughout our life, throughout our career and everything that we've done, from teaching school to coaching, to being on a church staff, we've tried to just model what it means to have a strong family and to be a strong family. And Glendale was a strong family for kids whose homes didn't provide what they perhaps needed in their life. So we feel very, very blessed to have spent 8.5 years here. It wasn't just a job, as I said a moment ago. It wasn't just time spent. We felt like we invested in the lives of young people and now young adults, and also it was an investment for our children to be around these young people. And but it was a team effort. We had a great time. I loved it, and I cherished the opportunity that we had just to be here and share together.
We had a good life here.
We had a lot of
A lot
fun.
of memories.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. That's where I am. These were special times, and they impacted our life for sure. And we just hope and pray we impacted the lives of these young kids, because they are special. They really are.
My name is Jamie Greer Kleinhelter. I was at Glendale from 1975 to 1978. I came from a very abusive home and ran away basically to save my life, and went to court and was taken from my mother's care and was sent to Glendale. And one of the first days here, I went over under the trees, and there was the monument of the 2 girls that had died here at Glendale on the train tracks. And I read the story, how if one girl's shoe got stuck, and before the train hit, her friend said, "I love her too much to let her die alone." And she went and sat down beside her and held her hand. When I saw that, I sat there and cried, because I wondered if I would ever have anybody that would love me enough to do that for me. So after I was at Glendale for a while, I realized that all of a sudden I had about 200 brothers and sisters, most of whom would take a bullet for me. And it saved my very life, it saved my very soul, and it saved my belief that we can all spread love and joy through this world by keeping memories alive. And those girls They died a tragic death, but they are forever in our hearts and in our souls. So when Glendale was sold, their monument was torn down and their plaque was chiseled away. I made it my goal to track that plaque down and get it back here to Glendale where it belongs. They are our girls, and I was happy to bring them home. There's a big granite stone with both of their names on it, and one of them, in fact, is buried under that cedar tree. So it could be her grave marker, and her friend, of course, is with her. So if you're ever in Glendale at Gilead, I invite you to spend a few minutes with those girls and find out what's really important. Friendship and knowing that you have people that love you enough that they would be willing to die for you. I'm happy to share the story with you about how Glendale saved my life. I learned so much here. It helped me become a better mother, a better grandmother, a better person, a better wife, a better employee, because we worked at Glendale. We had jobs. We didn't get paid much, but we had little jobs, and it was just pocket money. But I was one of the ones that spent the winter of 78 here, snowed in for 6 weeks, and I tell you, that was one of the best times of my life. We had so much fun. All these kids running up to have lunch together and then go out and play in the snow. It was just incredible. I stay in touch with my brothers and sisters, and I love them, and they're better than any family I ever had. They are my true family.
So I'm Renee Whitelaw, formerly Renee Papool. I have been in and out of foster care, or I was in and out of foster care from the time I was 7 until I graduated at 17. I was at Glendale from 1978 to 1987, just a few months shy of 9 years. Over that course of time, I was given the opportunity to meet many wonderful staff and so many people who are not just friends, but I consider brothers and sisters. Still have those relationships today, and they are a blessing. I was given the opportunity. They helped me get my college education, gave me the direction to do that. I don't know that I would have done that had I lived at home. I don't think I ever was neglected or abused, but my mother was not physically or financially or emotionally able to care for me. So Glendale was just, it was a blessing. It was the best thing that they could have done for me. As much as I hated leaving my grandmother at the time, it was definitely something that was good. And knowing so many stories that I knew from people who lived there, I think they would say the same thing. It wasn't perfect. No family ever is, but I think it gave us all stability and gave us all a sense of family that we didn't have otherwise. So to be able to come back every year and do this reunion and see people and see their children and sometimes even grandchildren and see how wonderful they are doing in life, and that so many have given back to the community, not just the community, but to other children. In particular, so many of my friends, Nan, Diane, Tim, who have been teachers, principals, people who make a difference in other children's lives. That's just so important. It's so important to give back. And I think, speaking not just for myself, but for all of us, Glendale was just a blessing. And that's the real reason I wanted to have this done today, is just to make people aware of how wonderful it was. And thank you, Champ, for taking your time out to do this for us today. I'm just so grateful. And what I've taken from this is, I think my relationship with my daughter is probably the most important thing. And the thing when I left Glendale that so many of us wanted to do was stop the cycle. Don't have your children here. Don't have their children here. Stop the cycle with us and be the parent that maybe we weren't given. And I think, that is important to all of us. I think my daughter would tell you I might not be perfect, but I think, the relationship we have is phenomenal. And I think that's what we've all strived to do, is just have the life that that we deserve, and not let our past and our backgrounds dictate what we do from the point we've left Glendale until now. So thank you, Champ.